Hi, and very good morning to you. It's Jim from maverickstar Observatory. Guys, we're looking at the geographic north or grid north location of our planet. But the poles that we're interested in are the magnetic south poles. This might come as a little bit of a surprise to a few people that, yes, in the geographic north are located at this current time the magnetic south poles on our planet. And the reason why I say poles is because there are two. One in Canada, which is weakening, one in Russia, where that bullseye is that I've put on the map, is the one that is increasing. And for that reason, we are seeing the dipole, which is the south magnetic dipole, migrate towards Russia as that intensity over Russia increases. Now, we have also been recently talking about the 40-degree mark on there, which you can see looks like it stops somewhere in between Canada and Russia, somewhere over the North Atlantic ridge. Right now we are crossing the North Atlantic ridge under the ocean. In the last 8 months we've seen around 20% increase over time in the speed of the migration. So we know that it's now approaching a critical point. That's why we come up with a theory that through studying that anomaly with the compass and the magnet close to it, we see that there's a dramatic change over that boundary where the strong and weak field lines cross. There are now because of one person a lot of people confused about everything that is going on, but we knew we was going to arrive here at some point. We knew that we were not going to no longer be dealing with the mainstream media, which has an immense amount of influence on its people's viewers. But now we're also having interference from people that really shouldn't even be in the scientific arena because their input is unscientific to start with. But that's just to say the least. We knew we was going to arrive here at this point in time, and really what is important are the changes that are taking place and how, more importantly, they affect our own lives back at our homes with our loved ones and our families. And you see exactly what I see in that arena. I don't have to be an expert in that arena. You are the expert in your own home. You know what's affecting you, and pretty much right now it's probably what's affecting all of us, and that is the cost and the increase in inflation. And we're all seeing our money have less spending power. What we're also seeing is, which is not being recorded, is huge, vast agricultural production lands going offline. This is nothing new. We said that this was going to increase as the anomaly progresses forward. The magnetic reversal continues to do what it's doing, which inevitably is weakening the general magnetosphere strength. We're going to see a lot more cloud seeding take place. As a result of that, we're going to see a lot of our jet streams on our planet intertwine with each other. We're seeing it across the equatorial region, where now we're getting interchange with subtropical over the northern southern hemispheres of our planet, and that is wreaking havoc not just for people's dwellings but for also their agricultural production. And as a result of that, when any commodity becomes hard to get hold of, the value of that commodity increases. I said a long time ago that if you had a reasonable amount of money, you could have tripled that with the knowledge that we'd given, because we was giving you a good 4 years advance heads up on what was going on with our planet and the climate. And for that reason, you could have made a lot of money. And I dare say a lot of people with the funding such as Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, and a lot of others, cashed in on it. And what did they buy? They brought large quantities of land in the sweet spots of our Earth that could, strive in these times. Bill Gates, for one now, I believe, is one of the world's biggest landowners in the United States, probably the world, who knows. But that was the sort of thing you could have invested in if you got that money. A lot of us don't have that luxury of having that sort of cash to cash in on, crises like this. A lot of us don't even feel the need to. We're just happy if we can get by comfortably, and our loved ones around us are also enjoying that luxury as well of just getting by and doing our bit. I'm going to change the map because we've talked about the increase in rate of migration of the magnetic North Pole, and we've talked about the intensity over Canada shrinking off and that in Russia increasing, and for that reason we're seeing the migration move from Canada early in the 1900s, mid 1800s. We start to see do some strange behaviour where it went to and fro, but really after the 1900s it started to fire off towards the direction of Russia, moving over the North Atlantic Ocean. So let's have a look at a short clip that shows us exactly what we're talking about, and then we'll just get into it a little bit more for you guys. What you'll see on the top left is the intensity weakening. You can see how dark red it is, and as time goes on you can see that intensity becoming less dense in colour, but what it really is representing is a decrease in the intensity of the magnetic field in that region. What you'll see is the opposite on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean over Russia, is the intensity actually increasing, and what that is an indication of is an increase in intensity or magnetic intensity. First of all, what we're looking at here, and for some reason all the big organisations do not mention this, is we're looking at two magnetic south poles over the geographic or grid north, and for some reason they don't even mention these two. But what we're seeing is a fight for the dipole. You see the dipole currently, that what your compass needle is pointing to, is neither one of those magnetic intensities. It's caught up in the field intensity of the both regions right now, but you can see exactly what I'm seeing is eventually, and Russia is already doing that, its intensity is increasing, and therefore it is taking the dipole over the Atlantic Ocean right now. So just to clarify things, this is looking like at this present time the magnetic north or the magnetic geographic North Pole will be over Russia, and it will remain a safe magnetic pole for now. That's what we're looking at. Some of the people have said that this magnetic pole is going to end up meeting the safe magnetic pole somewhere around the equatorial region, and I don't think that's the case, because we see the South Atlantic anomaly actually increasing towards Africa, and we can see the intensity lines over the southern hemisphere of our planet, where the magnetic North Pole is, actually being pushed back now. So I don't think that the two poles will ever meet like some of the people have predicted, and the reason why I say that is because we're actually watching the South Atlantic anomaly break out into two pieces and push over towards the African peninsula, and as a result it seems to be pushing the two dipoles, both over the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere, further away from each other. So we've got to really focusing now on what's going to happen as the pole migrates over the Atlantic Ocean in its current position. So what we did over here at the observatory was predict, or put some of the things, some other ideas simply down on the table, and we'll see what happens. You know, they are theoretically plausible, but at the end of the day, like I've said a lot over the last week, that this is just a theory. You know, the 40-degree mark arrived from some experiments that we conducted, and it suggests that, you know, although it is widely believed that the core of our planet is swirling molten material at some point in the inner core that is setting up a dynamo effect, which is, you know, what is widely taught in geomagnetics, which is described as the magneto, which generates the magnetosphere, generates our dipoles. It's swirling around and changing all the time, but I don't think it changes that much, and it doesn't change that frequently. And based on the theory that I've come up with, you know, this is something that moves as a whole, as opposed to being liquid, you know, very liquid. I believe that whatever it is that generates our magnetic dynamo in our Earth is actually fixed, and when it moves to a certain proportion, like we've seen it move from Canada now to over the mid-Atlantic Ocean, you know, migrating nearly 2,000 miles, I believe it gets to a critical point, and at that critical point we get a more faster migration over the northern hemisphere. For now, what we need to know is what we see. Quite basically, that is that the pole is making its way to Russia, and what will be the implications of that. And that's just what I want to just briefly talk on now, what we can expect to see, as well as a further decrease in the magnetosphere, which is going to affect our climate even more if it should get to the 40-degree mark and start to leave those strong field lines, which allows ordinary experiments. What they show us is that we cross a boundary of strong and weak field lines. Some people believe that these don't exist on our planet, but I guarantee you they do. You can fact check this information yourselves. Strong and weak field lines do exist on our planet, and our planet is like other people, unlike what other people say. It is like a bar magnet, and on a bar magnet you get strong and weak field lines. On our Earth you get strong and weak field lines. They do exist. What we expect to see is a faster migration. This would fit with other researchers working in this field that were studying lava flows during a unsuccessful magnetic reversal on our planet over, I believe, in Italy. And what they said is that the poles had reversed very rapidly during this point in time. You could almost see it. If you was looking at your compass, you would see the needle moving progressively in another direction, because of the rate of flow of lava was constant at this particular point where there was analysing the magnetite, which had solidified as the lava cooled down, and as it solidified it left the field intensity trapped in that lava. So we know that, you know, the magnetic poles can migrate very fast. But what is the reason for them doing that? I believe it is that they cross a critical line or boundary, and, you know, that's why I presented that experiment to you guys. It's theoretical, and it's like everything else involved in this field of research, unknown until it actually happens. But what I will say is that since the 1900s we have seen a couple of accelerations of the magnetic pole over the northern hemisphere already. From the 1900s to 1990 we saw a migration distance of just 500 miles. From 1990 to this current day we've seen over 1,300 miles, indicating that something is getting close to a critical point. In the last 8 months we've seen almost a 20% increase in that speed migration over that same time further distance has been covered by the dipole, or the magnetic south pole on our planet over the geographic north. You know, I really don't want to confuse you with this. Geographic north, it just means map north, but the south pole is exactly what we're looking at over there, if we want to get technical on it. But it is the pole in the northern hemisphere that we're talking about, and that happens to be a south magnetic pole. So that's where we are. You know, we can expect, you know, further disruptions to our jet streams. Let's just go and have a quick look at the jet streams before we end this. Just before we go over to have a look at the current jet streams on our planet, I want to just you know, show you this theory of mine. As you can see on the top left, we've got the temperature. The darker purple is, you know, the more intense in lower temperatures that we're looking at. Just to give you an idea, over the northern hemisphere, with those plumes right now, in, you know, the blue areas, in the centre of those you get these purple regions. We're talking temperatures of you know, upward of -30, -40 degrees Celsius. Towards the equatorial regions, you know, we're looking at temperatures that range from something like 20 to +35. On the bottom chart, we're looking at magnetic intensity. In the darkest regions, we're looking at 60,000 nanotesla, microteslas, or 60 microteslas. Over the top right, we've got a magnetic intensity, which is the main field intensity, or total intensity. What we can see is our two geographic magnetic south poles in the northern hemisphere, and the southern hemisphere we have the magnetic north pole. You can see the intensities when compared where those circles are on the temperature, and the magnetic intensities are the same. So this indicates to me that where the strongest intensities are on our planet is where the coldest regions are. And I don't think that that's a coincidence. You know, at the end of the day, we've got three major anomalies over the northern and southern hemispheres of our planet. The first is the magnetic poles. The second is Arctic climates, and the third is rotational axis. What we see clearly demonstrated over our northern hemisphere, where the two magnetic south poles are of our planet in the geographic north, is very cold environments. I don't think for any reason that that is by coincidence. And you know, if you agree with me on this, then, and we have seen the intensity as well as the temperatures drop over the Siberian region, over Russia, you know, is it just a matter of time before we see a rotational axis shift? Now, I can say off the top of that, just suggesting that we are not witnessing by any means at this moment. And a few years ago I used to do this on the solstices, you know, check the azimuth of the rising sun during midday so that we could confirm there was no rotational axis shift. Now, I haven't been out there with those apparatus to do that, and we've just missed a solstice, but I was watching a couple of family members that was there during the solstice, watch the sun come up over you know, the historic site of Stonehenge here in the UK, and it is anticipated that this is a monument that was built perhaps 6,000 to 8,000 years. I don't know, it's old, but it still lines up with the solstices at this moment. So there is no noticeable shift in the rotational axis of our planet by any major noticeable amounts. The reason why I say that is because we do have a natural wobble on this planet as it rotates, and I'm saying that that can give, you know, a slight change in the rotational axis. But if we've seen, first of all, the magnetic poles shift on our planet, we know that it is likely the climates hang around these regions where the poles migrate to, that if those two things are in the northern hemisphere that affect each other, then why aren't they affecting the third? And I'll just give you my idea on this. It's perhaps because they've not settled down yet to where the new poles will be. You know, there is still migration to arrive at that strongest intensity over Russia. There's still many miles for it to do that. If we see a shift in the ice buildup on our planet, we could be witnessing that effect that I showed you, that NASA have been showing people for many years now, where an imbalance on a rotating mass can set up the right circumstances for a reversal. Let me just see if I can find that clip quickly for you so you can see exactly what I'm talking about, and then we'll have a look at the jet streams. So I'll start the video off in a few seconds, but what we're seeing is a plasticine ball with a bolt in the one end of it, and it's rotating. Now, because the steel bolt has more weight over one hemisphere of this rotating ball, you're going to see what happens in zero gravity, or on the space station as it is, what happens to that plasticine ball. I think it's called the Benejakov effect. If I've totally destroyed that name, apologies for it, but you can look up this on YouTube if you just type in strange behaviour of rotating bodies out in space. I'm sure you're going to come up with a few examples of this. This is just one. What happened is, in the discovery of this, is an astronaut was unscrewing a panel, and it was a T-shaped bolt, and what he noticed is he knocked it and it spun off the thread, and as it spun off the thread, it started to behave very strange in that it rotated for a bit and then spun on its axis 180 degrees and started to rotate then. If our Earth was to put on a large mass in a particular area, then I cannot see a reason why it would not behave in the exact same manner. But we would have to think of a reason why our Earth would do that, and whether it is even possible. Well, like I said, what we're watching over the northern hemisphere right now is a movement of the magnetic field, and that seems to be also taking the climate with it. And if the shift of ice builds up, presumably over Russia, then there will be an accumulated mass over that region, and I don't see any reason why this effect could not happen on our planet, creating, a not only a magnetic reversal, not only a shift in the climate over the region, but it would also imbalance it on its rotation, and therefore shift the rotational axis. Also, those are the three major components over the northern and southern hemisphere. We're seeing two of them link up already. We're seeing a shift in the climate from over Canada to Russia. We could see, depending on where we are on the Milankovitch cycle, how far we are already out, which is suggested and agreed by me and a few others, that we could be 6,000 to 8,000 years already into the Milankovitch cycle, which puts our orbit further away from our Earth. This would again increase the likelihood of a shift of mass in ice to a new location, which would give us this same effect. Let me just run the video so you can see it. So you see the ball rotate, and then it goes 180 degrees on its axis. What is creating this phenomena is an imbalance on a rotating object. So we're just looking at the jet streams in general over our planet. I've showed you before, over the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere, we should have two separated jet streams. They don't usually intertwine like what we're seeing now. We should have a polar jet stream, subtropical, one at 60 degrees, your polar jet stream, and one at 30 degrees, your subtropical, which is closer to the equator. What we're seeing more of now. It's not just intertwined with the polar and subtropical, both over the southern and northern hemispheres. We're seeing subtropical interactions over the equatorial region. This is a new anomaly, again, which is not being mentioned in the mainstream media. In fact, you know, a lot of the stuff that we've talked about in this video alone is not being revealed to the general public, and I don't think it's just because they don't want the public to panic and because of what would happen if they were in the knowledge of it. I think there's other reasons for it, but you know, these changes are taking place on our Earth. You know, we're now witnessing super jet streams during winter periods over, you know, the southern hemisphere right now. You know, the southern hemisphere of our planet is in its winter because of its angle of approach around the sun. You know, that tilt of our planet never changes. It's just with relationship to the orbit of our sun. One thing that is changing due to the Milankovitch cycle is our Earth is slightly growing now back out into that distant elliptical orbit, and you know, that is exactly what causes our glacial and interglacial periods to take place on our planet. Guys, it is no comfort for me to tell you that we are returning 100% back into a glacial period. It is happening right now. Our governments haven't prepared for this, at least for our sakes. It is happening. I guarantee you, you speak to any climatologist that is prepared to talk about the Milankovitch cycle and the interglacial and glacial periods, he will tell you, if he's being honest, the exact same thing of what I have told you. We do have climatologists on our channel in the comment section. You know, they've been studying science all their lives. I've been in this game now, mainly in the field of geomagnetics, for 10 years. We've had an active observatory for 4.5 of those years, you know, studying the effects that are related to this geomagnetic reversal. You know, these things, you could take the bank. They are definitely happening. And we're not at, like I say many times, the equilibrium. We're not going to be at the equilibrium in the elliptical orbit progression, because we're only 6,000 to 8,000 years in that cycle, and it is a cycle, guys. This cycle, I've showed you many times, you can see it taking place 100% based on the core samples that we've took on our planet's regions. It shows us that we have a 100,000 year cycle, and the reason why we have that is because the change in our orbit around our sun. We're going back into a glacial period for that reason. We've got a magnetic reversal taking place. We know that through studying the mid-Atlantic ridge, and we know how frequently that went into reversal. The last time a complete reversal took place, 780,000 years. I always emphasize this. We're not dealing with a normal magnetic reversal on our planet when compared to those cycles, because this one is 500,000 years overdue, 500,000 years overdue. On average, it used to go through its cycles 300 to 350,000 years, based on the geological records that we find around the mid-Atlantic ridge on those deep undersea volcanic eruptive areas. Again, going back to what I talked about earlier in this video, it's through the study of solidified magma that we know where the poles were in our history. So, you know, bringing us back up to the present day, what we're watching, you know, just to clarify everything, you know, we're watching the poles migrate from Canada, where they've been for the last 780,000 years, migrate over to Russia. And we're about halfway there. We're approaching the 40-degree line, where it could be a critical region of where the poles cross from the strong interactions to the weak interactions, therefore allowing the poles to migrate a lot faster. When that happens, we could see not only a shift in the magnetic poles from Canada, or at the moment where they are now in the mid-Atlantic ridge, in the northern hemisphere to Russia, but we could also start to see, increases in ice form over that region of Russia. If we do, as I showed you on the on that strange phenomena that takes place with rotating bodies with a mass accumulated on one region of those bodies, we could see, at the end of all this, a shift in the mass of our planets, which sets up a rotational axis shift. If that occurs, then you know it as well as I know it, that super bulge around the equatorial region of oceans will shift. And that's something we don't want to see. And you should know the reasons for that. And yet, this is something we cannot take off the table. This is something that we cannot outrule if we are going to look at every possibility at this point in time during all what is taking place. So whilst those equatorial regions could be desirable for people to migrate to get out of those regions which are going to get colder further north and further south on our planets, you might think it's a good idea to migrate to those equatorial regions. But if what we are suggesting is a possibility, then there is very few places on this earth which will be 100% safe, let's say that, because of these obstacles and the possibilities of which are there that could happen. And now the more we look into this, the more feasible they seem to be. Means that there's going to have to be a lot of moving about to avoid each and individually every one of these possibilities. Guys, over the last week, I got really upset with some silly person making some horrendous allegations against me, which were completely and utterly 100% unfounded, and that's why he produced no evidence whatsoever to back up his claims. I really don't know, still thinking today, why he did that. All I can say is the only damage he's managed to cause is the damage in people with open minds to look into all these things, that other people that do a lot of work and present the evidence and the facts to these people to try and help them. He's just now pulled the hoodwink back over them, blindfolded them again, sent them back off into the dark. It's incredible. And I was prepared to even discuss these theories with him, but after that I can't see how I can ever do that. It was a malicious attack. It wasn't questioning the theories, it was just an attack on me personally. The sad thing is his subscribers won't even see it. He's trying to now convince them to invest in his ranch so that he can then in turn rent it back to them. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. This is the time where we're in now, guys. This is what we face. We're not only fighting against the organisations, against these very wealthy people that can adjust the attention from one direction of the media to another. We're faced with very silly individuals who are very easily brought down themselves. I mean, I could just carry on ripping that kid about what he does, about what he talks about. That is not going to do anything for this community that is out there genuinely trying to seek what is going on, so that they can make some sort of preparations for it, because we live in such uncertain times. And the sad thing is that they're not showing any signs of getting better. It's like we're on a downward course. I used to describe it as the gauntlet. That's where we're heading, unfortunately. And people are going to need as much knowledge as what they can get their hands on, and it has to come from a trusted source. If you don't know now, you never will, that we are not in this for the money. No adverts still running today on this channel because of what happened before Christmas. Trust has definitely gone there with this platform. And we're not selling merchandise. What we're doing is just saying, look, you want to help support us, the link's there. If not, then that is fine. Without the support, we just don't go any further. We're at a point in time where we could do with a lot more support because of the times which we're approaching much quicker now than we ever have done. And it's difficult is all I can say. And on that, I'll just end this video by saying there's a link there if you want to help support us. It's entirely up to you. The only other thing to say is continue with your preps, take care of your loved ones, and as always, bye for now.